They've triggered me. They've absolutely done me in with this podcast. I finished listening to it well over an hour ago. I got really wound up and I thought, I can't record like this. Go away, chill out, calm down, and then come back when you're calmer, record a video discussing the podcast and see what the Hammers Chat subscribers have got to say about it. I'm still wound up. This is me calmer now. They've absolutely triggered me with that podcast. Now, if you're unsure which podcast I'm referring to, Sky Sports have brought out a new series. It's called The Boardroom. It's hosted by Jack Sullivan as well as Mark McAdam. Now, I will say I've tuned into 2 previous episodes with Paul Barber and Les Ferdinand. I enjoyed them. As a neutral with no emotional attachment to QPR or Brighton or those 2 people in particular, I was able to enjoy those podcasts. Today's guest is Karren, Brady, and it's wound me right up. Now, if you haven't listened to it or seen it, I'll put a link in the description below if you want to go and have a look. But it does come with health warnings if you're anything like me. You may get wound up. But I've got a few talking points, a few things she said when being questioned. I would like to discuss them, and I'm going to try and do it in a calm manner, but it may be difficult. Before we get into it, you know the score. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Regardless of if you're new, please do drop a like on the video by clicking the thumbs up. Thank you very much. First of all, when she was speaking about the stadium, Karren said, people don't like change. She was asked about how some fans didn't want to move and some fans didn't like the move. They were against the move. And she basically suggested the reason for that was because people don't like change. It's human nature. Now, I agree with that part. Human nature, we don't like change. I don't like change sometimes. But that's not why people don't like the stadium move. That's why some people don't like the stadium move. Not everybody wanted to move, but there's a large portion of fans that trusted the club, that trusted the stuff the club put out. Because let's be fair here, what the club presented to the fan base prior to the summer 2016 and what the club delivered post summer 2016 to the fan base are 2 completely different things. So it's not that fans don't like change. Fans don't like being lied to. That's what fans dislike. They don't like being conned. And some people feel like they were. They feel like the promises made by Karren Brady, by the board of West Ham, were not delivered upon the move to the London Stadium. Personally, didn't want to move. I got sucked up a little bit towards the end of the season, 2015, 2016, because I went hand in hand with West Ham doing really well. We had one of the best players in football in Dimitri Payet at that time. I was going into every game believing we could win, no matter who we were playing, bring them on. So towards the end of that season, I got sucked into the move. I went and had a look at it from the outside. It's very impressive from the outside. The excitement got to me. But upon the move, immediately going in, you thought, what is this? This ain't what they said they were going to deliver. So people don't like change? No. People don't like being lied to. And post summer 2016, up until this point, there has been no acceptance by the club that they got it wrong. There's been no admission of error. Okay, actually, the gap between the stands and the pitch isn't what we thought it would be. It's not as good as what we thought. We said the stands would be closer. There's none of that accountability. Quite the opposite. The only things being put out there is, oh, look how fantastic this is. Look, we did exactly what we said. Rubbish. Change? No. Lying? Yes. She then went on to suggest the stadium move. I say suggest, she said it. That the stadium move led to the European win. Bollocks. Absolute bollocks. I'm not about to downplay the Conference League win. Okay, there's always been disputes about whether it's a real trophy or not. I'm not getting engaged in that. Okay, I like it. One of the best nights I've ever had in my life. Love it. It's a win for me. Happy days. But to suggest moving to Upton Park, moving from Upton Park, is the reason we won this Conference League trophy is bollocks. The competition didn't even exist when we moved. Finishing 8th in the Premier League now can get you European football. It's easier than ever to get European football as a Premier League club. We entered a low-level European competition. We haven't won the Europa League or the Champions League here. We've won a competition that did not exist, that was created So the lesser teams of European football have an opportunity to win something. That's why the trophy was created. That's why there's only one English club in the tournament. That's why there's only one French club, one Spanish club. It's so that teams from the likes of Belgium and Greece have an opportunity to win silverware, because financially they can't compete with other leagues such as the Premier League. It was literally invented for clubs not good enough for the Champions League and Europa League to have a shot at winning silverware. That's what we won. And to say that that's why we won it, moving from Upton Park to London Stadium, is absolute bollocks. It could be her opinion, but she's not claiming it as opinion, she's claiming it as fact. If we didn't move, this wouldn't have happened. How do you know? We could all look at the players that we've signed since then and say, well, maybe we only got that player because we moved. I don't believe there's not one player we've signed. I think maybe one or two players signed for West Ham because we were in European football. Lucas Paqueta, Mohamed Kudus, perhaps they came because we had that European competition to offer them. So they were getting to play not Champions League level, the next best one with the Europa League or Conference League. Paqueta came when we were just a way to start playing the Conference League football. But to say that without the move we wouldn't have won it, rubbish. I don't believe that for 1 second. And I'm not someone that downplays winning the Conference League. I think it's a fantastic thing. But what it upsets me is when you use it to justify the move to the London Stadium, because it didn't even exist at that point. And it's not like we got there through some master plan by the board. We got there through luck. You rehired David Moyes after deciding he wasn't good enough for West Ham just 18 months prior. You then rehired him because you had to sack Pellegrini. Moyes got us into that competition. He was the one that got us into Europa League. Then he got us back into the Conference League and he went on and won it. The biggest reason we won the Conference League is because of David Moyes, not because of the stadium move. Could we have got Moyes as manager at Upton Park? Absolutely. So the whole thing, it's bollocks. Then she mentions, we've got the cheapest adult season ticket in the Premier League. Correct. Factually correct. £345 for an adult. It is 100% correct. But what she also doesn't mention is that we have one of the most expensive adult season tickets in the Premier League. Our most expensive season ticket is £1,700. I think there's only two clubs with a more expensive season ticket than that. Arsenal and Tottenham, I think, are the two clubs with a more expensive one than that. She doesn't mention that, but which is fair. And I appreciate the reason I wouldn't use that against a club is because it's a premium seat. It's practically hospitality without being hospitality. It's the next best thing. It's a premium seat. The view, the actual seat is padded, etc. But let's flip it. The cheapest season ticket for an adult in the Premier League is the worst seat you can get in the Premier League. That £345 seats are, if you don't know, they're in the upper tier at the very back behind the goal. Not everybody is capable of watching a game of football from that seat, and not everybody's capable of reaching the fucking seat in the first place. Honestly, Joe Wicks would happily take one of his cardio classes and get them to go up to the seat and back again as part of a workout. It is miles away from the pitch. It's a horrible seat, but she's right. Factually, she's correct. It is the cheapest one. But she tagged it on despite having a new stadium in London. Again, well, first of all, I would say factually, the only factual part about that is it's in London. It's not new, though, is it? It was used 4 years before we moved in, and in between then, it was an Olympic stadium. But we haven't paid for it. We don't own it. It's not our stadium. If you didn't rent it, the season ticket wouldn't be that cheap. To some extent, the reason it's so cheap is because the rent's so cheap, and the rent's so cheap because it's quite a crap stadium. That's the reality of it. We don't have a purpose-built stadium for football. You look at what Everton are doing at the minute. It's hard not to look at that stadium and think, if only. And there will be other stadiums after it as well that come along. You think, well, you look, even redeveloped grounds, they're the worst ones. A lot of people point to what Everton are doing and saying, oh, if only we had that. I actually look at Anfield with their redevelopment. I think, oh, fuck, that's what we could have had. And then you see what Newcastle are doing. I think do not move, do not leave St James's. Just build on what you've got. It's an incredible stadium already. Increase the capacity of that stadium you've already got. Do not move. So it's actually Anfield I look at and think that's the one that hurts the most, not the new purpose-built ones like Everton have got. But she says it as if we own the stadium. Yeah, but it's a new stadium in London. It's a new stadium for football in London. It doesn't mean it's a new football stadium. I've got the thing that Jack Sullivan said next, but I'm going to skip that and come back to it because that's the one that really done me in. You think I'm wound up? Well, there's a worse one yet. She then said, fans create atmosphere, not stadiums. Again, factually correct. Do you know what? Over the last week, I've been thinking about this a little bit because it's been a big topic, hasn't it? Because of the season ticket renewals coming up and the rumour that Sean Whetstone put out there in regards to the increase of prices. It's getting to that point again where it's a big topic once more. And I've been thinking about it a little bit. Am I being a bit harsh on the stadium? Am I being too harsh? And I sort of half agree with what she said there. Fans create atmosphere. I mean, I would agree with that, not stadiums. And I agree, that's the bit I agree with more. I'm going to stop blaming the stadium, actually. Because I think the stadium contributes to the crap atmosphere. But do you know who I blame the most for no atmosphere? Her. Well, I say her. The board of West Ham United. Because they've done everything they can to prevent atmosphere. They put up a wall between the home fans and the away fans. And it's not because of physical altercations. There's a massive gap in between them anyway. They couldn't even get to each other. Take the wall away, you physically cannot get to each other. There's a huge gap. I don't know how big it is, but it's big enough to fit an ambulance in. That's the purpose of it. To stop missiles being thrown. How often does that happen, though, really? How often does someone actually throw a bottle from home to... It happens often enough, but they literally put up a wall. It's killed the atmosphere in that corner. They've constantly told people to sit down. Those that have stood up to sing, they've been told to sit down from day one. The club or the London Stadium literally hired snatch squads, I think they were called, snatch squads. They were built like UFC fighters. Do you remember them? And their tight black tops and their cargo pants and their black bat boots and their black gloves. They were ready to grab certain people. The lower Sir Trevor Brooking, I'm trying to think of the block numbers. I think it does decrease and increases in numbers, doesn't it? But anyway, the bit behind the goal of the Sir Trevor Brooking lower, the people in there that were standing got told stop standing or do one, and then they turned up and there was big massive guys looking for certain individuals to grab them and get them out the stadium. Persistent standing, the club have been battling against it since day one. They've sort of won in certain areas. There still is standing, but those blocks of standing have shrunk. And they've done everything they could to prevent an atmosphere, regardless of the stadium. You know my views on that. But once we're in there, we're in there. The club have done what they can, that once you're in there, it's difficult to create an atmosphere. So when she says the fans create them, you've drove them away. The people that create the atmosphere at Upton Park, a lot of them do not attend anymore. I heard a figure the other day. Gonzo told me a figure the other day regarding founders, season ticket holder founders that no longer go. I'm waiting for him to clarify that number. It's big. It's a huge number. It should be embarrassing. 35,000 families go every week. No, they don't. 40-something thousand people go, and that's it. There's 10,000 plus empty seats every single game. Before someone quotes the official attendance at me, don't bother. There's a huge difference between the official attendance and the people that actually go through the turnstiles. We sell out every home game because we've got such a large proportion of season ticket holders compared to other grounds. Liverpool, I might get this slightly wrong, but it won't be far off. 50% capacity as season ticket holders. They won't go above that. because the other 50%, it's worth a lot of money in match tickets. West Ham, our percentage is really high. We have a lot of season ticket holders. So for the entire season, that seat has sold. Count that up. We've probably sold 80% of tickets for our Premier League campaign before a ball has even been kicked on the first game of the season. People aren't turning up. So when she says 35,000 families go, it doesn't even make sense. You can't get that many, but I'm assuming she means adults and kids come to 35,000. But coming on to that, this is the one that really hit me a little bit. Jack Sullivan talking about the bus the day after Prague, the bus parade in East London, celebrating the victory. And he said, I saw a 6-year-old with his dad and granda. And then Karren said, you're crying, you're getting emotional. I was nearly fucking crying as well, but it wasn't for the same reasons. I was nearly crying because you prevent them from going to the game anymore. Maybe that family in particular can afford it. Maybe they can afford 3 generations of people paying full whack to go to the game. 210 quid for kid, dad, grandfather to attend one game against Liverpool. And that's in the crap seats. It's not even the good ones. That's the crap ones. To make that comment with everything that's going on with the concessions is taking the piss. It is taking the piss. Honestly, I didn't do it because I would have to listen longer. I wanted to pause the podcast and just chill a minute. Because how dare you make that comment? Now, I've got a lot of time for Jack. I've spoken plenty of times about it in the past as well. But that comment, I've got no doubt, he looked at it and thought, this is a beautiful moment. 3 generations of families celebrating West Ham win a trophy. It is a beautiful moment. It's what people dream of. People dream of being there with their old man, their little one, watching West Ham lift a trophy. Of course it is. But that's as good as it gets for them, because you're going home to watch on the telly next week, son, because we can't afford to go to the London Stadium because of those people on the bus. See that guy up there crying at you? His dad makes it so that you can't afford to go to the game anymore. It's taking the piss. They speak about crowds and fans and how important fans are, but their actions are doing the complete opposite. Now, the second half of the podcast, I quite liked her discussion regarding the regulator that's coming into football. The football regulator bill at the minute. I quite liked it because it's the other side of the argument. I've heard plenty of reasons why we should have one, but I've not heard loads of against it. And I know Karren Brady's against it. It's been put out in the press. Her name gets used where it's like, a football regulator, blah, blah, blah. Some people don't want it, including Baroness Brady. Right? Her name gets used, but there's no reasons given. So she discusses why she's against it. And I think she makes a good case. I enjoyed that part because I felt like I learnt something. But 2 things with that part. First of all, she doesn't like the fact that in regards to what the regulator are promising football clubs, it's not reflected in the actual bill. So they've said, there'll still be parachute payments, but in the bill it's not there. So now we can establish you don't like being promised something and it's not delivered. You don't like it. That needs to be cleared up before it happens. That needs to be changed. Welcome to being a West Ham United fan in the summer of 2016, because that's what we got. We got promised something, and when we turned up, it wasn't actually there. Retractable seating. Oof, won't be any further away Upton Park. We turned up and you're putting up fucking scaffolding further back. It was nowhere near what it was at Upton Park. It was completely different. We had... The claret carpet we've got now is an upgrade. It used to be bright green. The pitch, there were certain players used to complain that when they played at the London Stadium, they thought the pitch was wider than it actually was because of the green car. This is how, I'm not even making this up. One player in particular used to play for West Ham as a centre-back has mentioned before that when they were playing at the London Stadium, he would look up, a bit under pressure a little bit. He would look up quickly, see where his teammates were and the pitch was, and he would ping it to what he thought was the touchline. But actually, the touchline was 5-10 yards closer to him, but he thought it was wider because of the green I don't even know what it was. It wasn't carpet back then. It was plastic sheeting. It looked like the pitch. But anyway, the claret carpet we've got now is an upgrade. Going off at a tangent here, I'm inside. But my point is, she's upset. They're being promised something and it's not being delivered. Welcome to our world. But the last thing I will say about that, in regards to what she was talking about in the football regulation bill, and she was explaining why parachute payments are so important for clubs. She said if Brentford get relegated today with a parachute payment, they've got a 60 or 66 million pound gap. Don't dispute it. I'm not going to. That's fine. I believe that. Why not? She's just repeating what she's been told by Brentford. But when you get relegated, the whole time she was speaking, you just want to say to her, do you realise you speak about relegation and financial security for the club long term? When she was saying it, I was sat there thinking, do you know what? Apart a few obvious clubs like Arsenal, for example, we've got to be the club that relies on Premier League football the most out of that clubs. That 20 teams in the Premier League, some of them can get relegated, and you'd imagine they'll be all right. You'd imagine Ipswich and Southampton have planned for relegation. You'd imagine Brentford and Crystal Palace are aware of the repercussions and have got a bit of a plan as to what happens if they get relegated. I don't know this. This is my opinion. It came to me when she was speaking. I thought, we've got to be one of the clubs that rely and depend most on being in the Premier League. And this is nothing new. I've wondered it before in the past. I know plenty of you watching this will say, I've always said this. I know, I read it, I promise you. Because if we get relegated, that stadium's going to be half full at best. People are going to walk away. But when we were Upton Park and we got relegated, people turned up. 20, 30,000 people would be there. We get relegated now, that 20, 30,000 people that were there 2 decades ago, they ain't going to be there now. They're gone. You've got rid of them. And when you decide your business model is to get rid of your loyal fan base and replace them with those turning up for the product, back in Upton Park, people turned up for West Ham United. At the London Stadium, people are turning up for the Premier League. And if you ain't got the Premier League, you're bang in trouble. Because those who would have turned up before may not turn up anymore. And some of those people that might not turn up, 3 of those people that might not turn up is a 6-year-old, the dad and the granddad that Jack Sullivan was looking at, enjoying themselves, while his dad was fucking robbing them.